All right, how's it going, guys? Trade AD here. This is Monday. I apologize for not being able to stream, but I had some errands to run, so I was in and out, more or less. But I was able to take some good trades. I was 100% today, but a part of me is thankful that I didn't actually stream because some of my trades weren't executed in the best places, even though they still went. That's the beauty of counter trend. Now, the reason why my strategy is so proficient is generally because they're stacking with multiple reasons why it would counter. Well, I didn't quite hit all of those factors, so they were mainly B setups, and hindsight is 2020, and after looking at it, I can almost say I got lucky in a lot of them because they did reset on daily trend lines, but some of them didn't quite reset where they were the absolute top of a short. In fact, a lot of them I was very thankful that I wasn't greedy and I got out when I could. So that is basically why I could potentially make good out of something that's possibly bad. So let's take a look at AMD. So AMD here is moving on up really strong in the morning. You can tell it's 9:54, so it's not 10:15 yet. And generally 10:15 is when we have the three 15-minute candles. Now that's one of my parameters, one of my strategies that I focus on. I don't trade until 45 minutes after. That's why I say I'll start streaming at 10:15. So very rarely do I start trading this early, and this is actually one of the reasons why, because what I'm going to counter on this one is not exactly the very top where I short. In fact, it kept going for quite a bit, but I was able to get a nice, get a little bit off that reset, the small counter. You can see on the daily chart that it actually hits this area of the trend line, and that's when it gives me a little bit of extra conviction knowing that it's going to reset, or counter, that is. And if you look at the volume, you can't really tell that it's actually growing because it's not in the ones. It is growing on the 5s and the 15s, but you can't really see it here. So that's one of the potential reasons why this one was not a perfect setup, even though it was surging really hard and it needed to come back. But it was early. So taking something like this is quite risky. So I'm looking at the SPY chart. That's another part of my strategy. Some of the guys that watched my previous videos will know that the SPY, to me, is like the wind. So if it's blowing down hard enough, a lot of times it would help me execute a short to go down with it. And it goes down, and I'm watching the level 2 here. I'm trying to see if there's any reason why it would want to go back up. And if I see the bid that's growing really strong, I may just exit, because it's not time to get greedy, especially when I'm 15 minutes before the next 15-minute candle. And you can see right here that it actually kept going. So I'm seeing extra volume here, so it looks like it's going to go again. But you can tell it's not a ramp. It's just surging really hard. So this one can get dangerous because it may actually create one of those rainbows, not exactly a ramp. So ultimately I'm green on that one a bit. Basically being able to execute the shorts were at an ideal place, if you notice on the 2s here. So I've had this question asked to me before. When I'm looking for the ramp or the parabolic, am I looking at it for the 1s, 2, 5s, or 15s? Now, ideally, I want to see the ramp on all time frames, not just the 1s. But this is generally how it goes. If I see the ramp on 1s, on the 1s chart, then it probably go pretty fast. It'll go up and it'll go down, and I may just exit on the 1 minute 9 EMA. If I see it on the 2s, then I'll do it on the 2s as well. But if I see it on the 15s, it could be a slow mover. If I see it on the 15s and I don't see a ramp on the 1s, then that's where we start getting on the dangerous side. So ideally, I want to see the ramp and volume and the parabolic move on the 1s, 5s, and 15s. That, to me, is additional conviction. But this one, AMD, didn't have quite that on the ones, only on the 5s and the 15s. So have to be very careful if it's going to reset or not, because again, it's not even 10:15 yet. So Z and E, you can see that this one has the 1 minute chart ramp and the volume. And all I have to do here is find the daily resistance, which I did, and I shorted this one. And this one came out well, as pretty good. So, just generally, the hardest part for everybody is patience. If you know exactly how to execute the trade, then the hardest part is just knowing when to execute and not to be entirely too greedy. So here's another trade, GMIA. You can see on the daily chart an area there. So I'm looking for that on a short, and I kind of caught it a little bit late. So when you're late, you have to remind yourself that just take it when the chart looks right, and don't try to be green. Being green is secondary to executing the trade correctly, basically. And it shot down pretty nicely. Another thing I've noticed in one of the streams, most previous streams, where I think it was SGEN, where I got a little move, and then later on it reset itself and it moved ridiculously, making you feel like an idiot, regardless if you're green or not. And the thing is, you can't put that into perspective, because hindsight is just hindsight. We'll never know if it's going to actually go that way for the other stocks, and we don't know why it did that. All we know is what happens at that moment. So don't assume that you're going to get a home run. Actually, never assume that, because once you start thinking like that, that's where the greed starts setting in, and that's why a lot of people actually fail boat when it comes to that psychology. So MGNX was the big troublemaker here, because there was obviously news, but I didn't quite find it on my Thinkorswim, and it was just surging. Now the problem with that is the amount of volume that was coming in was so strong that it's hard to tell when it's going to start running out of steam, because the volume keeps rising and rising. So the moment you think you had the most volume, before you know it, the next minute it's even greater than the one before, the volume bar, that is. So it tricked me a few times, but I was able to identify that, and it was a dirty area that I actually moved. The area that I moved wasn't exactly on the daily chart, so I just took it because it had that rejection candle, and that volume was a lot more than the previous. So the volume bars were creating a ramp as well, and I just couldn't foresee it getting any higher, even though it could have. So you execute it accordingly, and you just kind of hope for the best, and in which case it turned out in my favor ultimately at the end. So here's Ping, and Ping is ramping extremely well, is looking very pretty. Is in the ones it looks linear, so it gets a little dangerous here, and everything looks a little bit dirtier in the ones, but just trying to find the daily support or the daily resistance, and I was able to find it. Even though I was a little bit late, I was still able to stay green for the day. So today was really tricky, guys. And on top of that, other than doing the trading, I had somebody email me about a new type of scanner that I was just trying to download, and I'll let you guys know what it comes out to be. I'm not talking about the Thinkorswims. I'm still working with that. Ultimately, it is a cool idea to try to create a set the parameters for the Thinkorswim, but I still haven't been able to make it work that well. So if you want to just chime in in the chat room and let me know if you're willing to try out what Nelson has sent me. It looks promising. It does. I'm just not really good with Thinkorswim. I use it for what it is. I use it for the charting, the studies, the news, the Benzinga, and the CNBC. Other than that, I'm never going to use it for trading, I don't think, because it just doesn't have the speed. So it's good for everything else. The charting is great, but if I can get the scanners to work good enough, then a lot of you guys could save a little bit of money. But bear in mind, at this moment, I think today, Trade Ideas has a 2-week, what they call a test drive. So basically it's a trial period. So you get to try it out and see how you like it. And if you like it, I'm pretty sure you will, especially if you ask me for my scanner parameters, then you're set for 2 weeks. And if you like it, there's a discount code in the description below, and you can get it for 15% off, I believe. And yeah, let me know what you think. Today did not go the way I would like it to, even though it's 100%. I will stream tomorrow, but I will not be trading some of these trades that I traded today because they're not perfect enough for beginners. They're a little bit too tricky. And yeah, thanks for joining me, guys. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye.